Hey, good morning, everyone. It is a very special day because we have a guest today coming on the program, and not just any guest. This is going to be an exclusive with one of the senior members of the Republican Study Committee. This is a group of, more than 180 House Republicans, conservatives who are rolling out a new plan for a Reconciliation 2.0 bill. This is basically a partisan Republican bill. The first one was obviously tackling taxes. The president called it the big, beautiful bill. Well, now there's a push in Congress to do another one in a midterm year. So we'll talk to him about that and whether they can actually get the votes. Is this actually going to go anywhere? Color me skeptical, but we'll get to that eventually. More importantly, let me see. Oh, yes. Well, more importantly, sorry, guys, lost my train of thought. A long night last night. We want to sort of direct you guys to, again, subscribe to the DC Huddle. Go to the DCHuddle.com, subscribe. Our YouTube numbers are going up, but we would love to get more folks on there. It's obviously a good way to support us. It's free. Just click that subscribe button. And we'll really appreciate if you do that. Thank you.
Share it with 5 friends. This is how we grow. Take the link, send it and say, are you watching the DC Huddle right now? You should be. Here's the link. Boom.
Do it right now. As you pick up your phone, I'll do it right now.
I didn't get you anything for Christmas, but here's the link to the DC Huddle. Nothing says I want to get back in your good graces like that.
There you go. Free. Today's 5. We're going to talk about making Elizabeth Warren great again. Powell's effective counterpunch after that investigation was announced. The situation in Iran intensifies. The president going to be making a big decision today at the White House. The 2028 Democratic primary calendar getting some attention. Dan is all over this, so we definitely want his insights on that. And then again, after these topics, we're going to go to Burilson, Eric Burilson, Mississippi congressman from the RSC, who is going to be coming in around 9 o'clock. Mississippi. Okay, we're going to fact check that. We'll know it for Okay, the day book.
Welcome to live TV.
The day book. So today at 10 a.m., the Supreme Court will meet to hear oral arguments in a pair of cases about whether states can ban transgender girls in women's sports, transgender individuals in women's sports. A lot of people saying they expect that these will sort of be upheld. A lot of states around the country have done this, but the court's going to be looking at it. At 9 a.m., both parties are going to be doing their standard morning huddles. After that, the speaker will be coming out to do his typical press conference at 10 a.m. Democrats will follow at 11 o'clock. But the big event is that the president is going to Detroit today, where he's going to be sort of selling his agenda, number one, but also talking about this new economic message he has and some of the new proposals he's been throwing out. He's going to be visiting and touring Ford Motor Company in Dearborn. And then at 2 o'clock, he'll be giving remarks at the Detroit Economic Club. At 2:15, we'll see the Congressional Progressive Caucus, led by Ilhan Omar of Minnesota, coming out and talking about DHS funding. Expect to fund ICE to be a top headline from this press conference. I will note that yesterday, Senator Chris Van Hollen, who sits on the Appropriations Subcommittee for DHS, he came out and said there should be no more money for DHS without, quote, accountability, whatever that means. So this whole defund ICE, as we talked about yesterday, picking up steam on Capitol Hill ahead of a big funding deadline at the end of the year.
Well, I think what was even more noticeable was Hakeem Jeffries didn't shut this down. He kind of gave it a little bit of oxygen. So I am stunned that they did that. I would think, this is a political show. You may want to do it, but you don't have to say it out loud. And that, I think, is remarkable that he's giving it oxygen.
Well, also, Van Hollen's Maryland. Maryland is the home to a lot of federal employees. You think about what DHS encompasses these days, right? That's he's willing to hold those people hostage, their paychecks, their livelihood. Again, this is such a switch of the dynamic that occurred years ago with those guys, the Virginia and the Maryland delegations would lock arms and be like, we can't touch anything to do with federal employees. Now he's basically saying, I'm going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And it's just unreal how far the Democratic Party has come when on a lot of these issues.
Well, I would say his stance is probably pretty popular in Maryland.
And of course, I
don't doubt that, but I'm just saying it's funny how no one's this is a guy who 10 years ago would have said, don't threaten federal employees. They're the backbone that keeps America strong. And now suddenly it's throw them out.
For the record, Sean was right. Burilson is from Missouri, not Mississippi. I stand corrected. 1 for Sean, 0 for Rachel this morning.
7th district, served in the Missouri Senate, Missouri House before that. board member of the Missouri Right to Life, Missouri National. I mean, anyway, we could go on and on about his life.
Those M states, they get you every time. Okay, so at some point, the president's going to Detroit, we just mentioned, but at some point he's going to come back. He's going to be meeting with Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth, and Dan Kane to discuss what to do with the situation in Iran. Is it a strike? Is it a cyber attack of some sort, new sanctions, or, as the president loves to do, make a deal? We'll talk a little bit about that later in the program. And then on the House Oversight Committee, Republicans are now threatening to launch a contempt proceeding against the Clintons. We've talked about this before in December. If they don't appear for closed-door depositions that are scheduled for today on the Epstein issue. So we'll get on into all of that. But before we jump into the conversation, go ahead, Sean. Let's talk about our sponsors.
Yeah, well, I got to say, we got two right now. Number one, we've been talking about this forever. This is the first day I'm not completely bathed in Cozy Earth, I think because I had to put it in the laundry. But Cozy Earth was definitely the winner this Christmas. I think Dan's family the same way. The pajamas, the joggers, the eye mask, the bubble blanket. You can't go wrong with Cozy Earth. It is so comfortable. Like Dan's picture on, if you didn't see it on social media, like you almost want to curl up with the dog and on your own couch. That's why you got to get your bubble blanket. You can get it at CozyEarth.com. Use code word huddle, 20% off site wide. You cannot go wrong. I'm telling you, for yourself, if you didn't get what you wanted for Christmas or the holidays, or you forgot somebody, or there's something coming up, you will not go wrong if you go to CozyEarth.com and use the code word huddle. I'm telling you, no matter, it's cool because I got my kids, my wife, relative, like everybody is satisfied with Cozy Earth. You cannot go wrong. And that's the best part. So go to CozyEarth.com, use code word huddle, 20% off site-wide, some exclusions to apply.
Great. Thanks to Cozy Earth. Let's jump in. Make Elizabeth Warren great again. So we joked yesterday on the program that no one's going to be watching her speech to the Economic Club in DC.
One person was.
I was just going to say.
But guess who was the most powerful man in the world who picked up the phone and called her? Yes, the woman he called Pocahontas once upon a time, and told her speech, which was about how the Democratic Party should lean into populist ideas and reject elites. He said it was great, and he basically agreed with her. Dan, this is just incredible and so very President Trump. To just pick up the phone and call someone after he saw them and watch their speech. But let's be real here. Democrats are not going to want to work with the president, even if they agree with him on some of these issues. Are they?
I don't know, because here's what's so kind of remarkable about this week. So Trump in the last 2 weeks has shocked industries with some of these ideas. He's shocking his own base. We're going to talk to the congressman later today. Their proposal, the Republican Study Committee, goes in a little bit of a different direction. The one group that's kind of unified with what he's starting to throw out are Democrats. So you're going into a midterm election in which you have an energy problem with your base. You are facing an uphill climb, and one proposal after the other is out of the Democratic progressive playbook. So I get why the triangulation might work for Trump if he were up in 2026. But I don't get what he's doing unless he can drag his own party. He's simply dividing his own team.
I want to get to that with Sean, because in recent days, the president has backed legislation to crack down on credit card swipe fees. There's the whole 10% cap on credit card interest rates, this idea that Congress should ban institutions and corporations from purchasing single family homes.
Well, and can I just say the credit card idea was Bernie Sanders 7 or 8 years ago.
Right. And Warren, of course, a big champion of some of this stuff as well. But like a lot of Republicans on the Hill, they don't like this, right? Privately, they really don't like these ideas, Sean. So the president's going to be talking about them today. And I guess, like, how do you navigate this as a Republican if the president is out there siding with Democrats and you are not willing to even support some of these ideas? Isn't he kind of throwing them under the bus in a way?
No, I don't think so. This goes back to, I mean, I've said this over and over again, and I'll repeat it, but I think the president's job is to make sure that he gives his party cover going into a midterm. And the point is that he's got the largest microphone to be talking about an issue that a lot of Americans are rightly concerned about, which is this issue of affordability and paying the bills. And I think if he's out there seen as, I'm your champion, I'm continuing to fight, I've got a new idea, I'm thinking of something else. Look, if you think about it in the workplace, there's two types of employee. Well, not two, but I mean, you think about it, the person who just sits at their desk and waits to be told. And there's a person that's the idea person. Like, hey, what if we did this? Sometimes you're not getting it on the bullseye, but you're like, hey, I appreciate your initiative. I know that you're trying. I think the president gets a lot of credit, and the Republicans that I'm talking to kind of view it that way, which is, look, this guy's trying. He's out there trying to address issues that are forefront for the American people. But, you know, obviously that's not where I am. So he gets credit for effort and for trying. But I don't think anybody believes, like, I haven't talked to a single Republican that wants to champion these issues. But
Exactly.
remember what the last thing I'll say is remember the three pots. So you got team, I'm never voting for Trump. I'm a Democrat. I'm on the left. You've got right-leaning MAGA, which is pretty much like, hey, if he supports it, I'm with him. And then you got folks in the middle. And I think for a lot of folks in the middle that aren't politically attuned, they're like, hey, this guy's trying. I get it. And
but you know what, though? That is what I was going to say. Here's the problem with what you just laid out. That middle group that's a little antsy about Democrats, if Democrats can hug Trump on this, now you're saying, well, you know what? If the Dems take the House, they're going to work with him. Because I'll ask you guys both this. State of the Union, Trump throws these out. Which side's standing up?
Yeah. I mean, but this is where if Democrats were smart, they would do that. But listen to what you just said. Democrats hug Trump.
You know what? If AOC, Bernie Sanders, and Elizabeth Warren will stand, thank you, sir. Like, they'll all hop. I'll also just add the inflation numbers just came out in line with expectations, 2.7%. Neither good nor bad. It's still hovering there, but probably good in the aggregate.
Just one more thing on this economic issue, Sean. I mean, like, Republicans are like, thanks, for, you know, trying, right? But no thanks. We don't want to pass this. Why aren't they like syncing up? Why aren't they rolling out something together that they can, you know, try to pass? Like, you would think they would be doing that in the message.
Look, I was the budget spokesman for 3 years. I was the conference spokesman. It's just people are incapable. We'll have Congressman Burilson on in just a second and talk about. I mean, like, everybody thinks that's up there that they've got the right idea, the right approach, and that if you just do what I'm talking about, that'll be. And so, getting consensus is difficult. And you look to the White House to sort of do that. That's going to be what I want to talk to Congressman Burilson about. Like, what's the effort going to do to get consensus around any of these ideas? There's a lot of them in this reconciliation package proposal that they've put out that we'll talk about in just a second. The problem is fundamentally they're not capable of doing that, and the speaker is sort of allowing the White House, which he kind of has to drive the train, and that's what's going to happen on reconciliation. Ultimately, is the White House is going to say this is in, this is out. So. I think
this would never have happened with Pelosi.
Okay, yeah, well, she had an iron fist.
Yeah, you're right, and it's a different mechanism because Pelosi also grew people from the bottom. She made sure that they were like funded during the campaigns, and then they owed her, and there was this hard line. But that's
and they were afraid of her. Let's be honest,
and that's not where we are now.
Yeah.
So
okay, we got a lot to get to before the congressman from Missouri, not Mississippi, comes on. Let's move to the Fed probe blowback. So up until now, the administration, whenever they've sort of gone after the president's adversaries, it's been met by congressional Republicans with sort of a collective shrug. This was not the case with the probe against Jay Powell that was announced over the weekend. You had Senate Majority Leader John Thune saying he wants this probe to be resolved quickly because he doesn't want it to he wants the Fed to continue without political interference. You had the House Financial Services Committee Chair French Hill saying that this is an unnecessary distraction. Kevin Cramer, a Senate Republican who's no fan of Powell, by the way, saying that this should be put to rest quickly. Sean, we heard this over and over yesterday from Republicans who are allies of the president who just do not like this investigation. It is pretty clear, it seems to me, that some people in the administration are having regrets about this and what happened. What can they do? Like, can they end the investigation? Like, how do they sort of backpedal this to sort of take this off the front burner right now where people are freaking out?
So you saw Jeanine Pirro put out a statement, basically the U.S. attorney from D.C., and saying, hey, look, we try to reach out.
Let's put that up. We have this right here.
Put that up. Sure. This is so.
Element one.
So Pirro says here, the U.S. Attorney's Office contacted the Federal Reserve on multiple occasions to discuss cost overruns in the chairman's congressional testimony, but we were ignored, necessitating the use of legal process, which is not a threat. The word indictment has come out of Mr. Powell's mouth, no one else's.
We never said it.
Huh?
Yeah. We never said it.
Well, yeah. But here's, so to your point about how does this come back? I think that's the answer right there. They're basically saying, hey, look, we were trying to get answers. He wouldn't answer, so we ratcheted up the legal mechanism here. I think that was their way of saying, like, hey, we weren't really going to do this. We were just looking for answers. My guess is that this is where everybody dials it back and says, hey, if you could just give us that letter we've been asking for and the the contractor's plans and budget, we'll be good.
Dan, do you buy it?
No, of course not. Powell
no. Do you buy where it ends up?
Yeah, they're by the end of this week or by the end of the month, this will be dropped. Powell won.
I don't think that, but that's, I guess what I'm getting at is, I don't know that it's quote, their answer is, gosh, it was never even, we were just asking questions.
It wasn't a real,
I've never,
what are you talking about?
Yeah, this is the first time in Trump 2.0 that I have seen them backpedal and run for the hills in just total defeat. Which is remarkable. Look, no one bats 1,000. I'll give them credit. Sean, you flagged it Sunday night when Trump kind of was like, I don't know anything about this. Like, I totally believe he did, but that should have been a tell right away that like they are running for the hills. Scott Bessent leaking. Okay, somebody on his behalf.
I was going to say, we don't know if it was Bessent.
Not only did he disagree, but that he told the president directly he did. I mean, we don't hear many cabinet officials making sure the public knows I basically ripped the president a new one. It's amazing. Hat tip to Jerome Powell. It dry to the point and short with that video. He also got people out to rally around him. The best case for Trump is some people were silent.
By the way,
nobody defended it.
After the Comey, what we went through with Comey, I think that's where Trump is like, hey, God, like this continues my belief that Trump really didn't get read in on this, because I think he was like, what are you guys doing? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
But Sean, here's the problem with that.
There's some issues
at
with
the
that.
same time, they're leaking. They want that he's upset with Pam Bondi because she's not moving fast enough on his enemies.
Well, I do want to talk about some of this palace intrigue for a second, because I have a little bit of a history with it. So we mentioned Bessent and how he didn't like this, was worried about the bond markets, et cetera, and made that crystal clear, which leads to the question of who was the instigator here. And it turns out that it was Bill Pulte, who's the head of sort of housing policy issues. Him and Bessent hate each other. I reported back in August of last year that Bessent approached him at a private party and threatened to, quote, punch him in the effing face. And it was all over this same sort of issue, right? Like Bessent felt like Pulte has been infringing on his turf, that he's giving the president advice that is, bad for the economy, could hurt the economy, et cetera. He's been trying to sort of sideline him. And Pulte clearly got the upper hand here. Apparently, at one point, he was showing the president wanted posters with Jay Powell's face in them.
And he golfed with Trump. Let's be clear. He's a golf buddy of the president.
Yeah, he was on Air Force One with the president on the way
to Mar-a-Lago
and back this weekend. So
you guys, I'm just spitballing here, but the president has thrown out that Dana White's going to host a UFC fight on the lawn. I think instead of getting professional like MMA guys, it should be a cabinet thing. No, that's the top card. So like the undercard, you start like at the staff level, right? You get Stephen Miller versus someone, and then like you maybe even a Dem versus a Republican, and you work all the way up to the main event, which is Pulte versus Bessent
on Trump TV, right? Because that you got to pay per view that one.
Let's remember Bessent is like very tall and Bill Pulte's pretty short. So like that would, I don't know if that's a fair fight.
Sean,
that's true. He's stocky. He's stocky though. He can.
Yeah.
I'm short and stocky. So there you go.
Conor McGregor, man. I mean, like there's a bunch of these guys that I wouldn't.
Sean, you witnessed a lot of this stuff in the first term. Like it obviously, like in all seriousness, we've talked about in 2.0 in the third campaign, they did not have a lot of drama. But to Rachel's point, this has been bubbling up. You have the venting about Bondi, which we haven't seen a lot of, the president's venting in private stories this second term. None of this happens if things are going well. Yeah, so how if you're that team, how do you get this back, out of the headlines, when Trump feels like things aren't going well?
But it's a distraction in the headlines, but in a lot of ways, Sean, the president likes this. He likes when advisors have different ideas. he's like, he wants them to argue them out. He wants to see different perspectives, right? And so
Yeah, but
this
he
isn't
looks
an
bad
issue.
right
He
now.
wouldn't see this as an issue, would he?
No, I mean the difference is he likes the scrappiness of like coming in and you go out, you tell me what you think, you tell me what you think, and like have at it. Like that's to him like, hey,
Yeah.
good. Now I'm hearing the whole like unvarnished truth here, as opposed to the happy talk. There's a difference though. I think like when he doesn't think you're advancing his agenda or getting it done, I think that's a little different.
Because he
Generally
looks bad.
speaking, look, he also is a person that. This is like part of what I always think is difficult is to discern the general sort of churn so like if you called him right now and said, Mr. President, how are you this morning? He'd be like, great, Sean. How do you think Caroline's doing? And I'd be like, well, sir, I think she's doing fantastic. Great. That's what I hear from everybody. What about Stephen Chung? What do you think? And you would say, Mr. President, he's doing great too. Good. I hear that from everyone as well. Like that's his way of conversing. He asks you he's checking in constantly. The issue that people have sometimes is that like when you're not getting that feedback, when someone's saying, I wish they were doing more of this or more of that. So I think that the issue is sometimes like, where is that? What's hard to calibrate is sometimes, is that just him checking in? Is that him getting feedback, or is that him expressing his personal frustration? And you have to kind of sometimes really have the ability to go in and surgically probe a little bit more. Like, is it him that's asking this or pushing this, or is it somebody pushing it on him?
Yeah, good question. Let's move on to Iran. So both of you seemed pretty skeptical yesterday about this notion of the president greenlighting actual military strikes. But the Wall Street Journal is reporting that the president is currently leaning toward that. Is this just the art of the deal? Sort of leak something to a reporter, hope, the Iranian regime is reading, and sort of get them to back off, Sean?
Well, you saw him yesterday saying they called, they want to talk. I mean, I think that to me was his way of saying, hey, if you guys want to dial this down, it's kind of what he did with Maduro. Look, you guys, Colombia did the same, right? Call, tell me what you're going to do to make this right. I don't think that's possible in the case of Iran, however. Yep. And so my current state of thinking is that you're going to get some targeted military strikes and some non-kinetic activity, cyber attacks, et cetera, where you're going to come in and really try to take out any centers of power of the regime and help lift up the protesters a little. That's where I am. Again, my big question is what next?
I'm very skeptical about this notion of like talks with Iran, just like you, Sean, because like, okay, so they call and they say, oh, we want to negotiate over our nuclear program. The president had been pushing them to do that the entire first year of his second administration. They dragged things out. And now that they're getting overrun with protests and riots, they want to talk. It just doesn't pass.
Well, I think the other problem he has is he's come pretty close to drawing red lines in terms of if the regime hurts the protesters. There is no doubt that they are killing protesters. And in fact, it appears to be accelerating. It appears that they are now actually openly doing it in public to intimidate, protesters to get this to stop. So I kind of am with Sean now that I think he's boxed himself in a little bit because he's very concerned about how he's perceived and how he looks. He mocked Obama over the Syrian red lines that he let go, as he should have. Obama, you can't make those statements and not do it. I don't see how Trump doesn't do something now. I just don't.
Sean, last word on that. You think it'll happen? Here's a question. Will it happen this week? Or does he give it a little time to see if they recalibrate for the protesters?
I think considering what's happening in Minnesota, it happens this week.
Oh, we also got to talk on this topic about some of the reporting that Vance has been, the vice president has been sort of trying to persuade the president to engage in diplomacy first. Now, his team, we saw this online, have very much sort of pushed back on this notion. His allies are out there saying, look, like he would support whatever the president wants to do and obviously sees Iran as a threat. Totally believe that. But the sensitivity to the reporting that Vance is sort of skeptical and wants to try diplomacy first, I guess I don't understand why that would be a bad thing. Isn't like your job as like a top official, as a vice president, as a top official, is to sort of lay out what are the different options? And I don't know. How do you see this, Sean?
I
Like,
mean, I want to
go ahead,
interject
Dan.
for a second, because this goes to what Sean made the really smart point about yesterday. You can sell MAGA-ish on Venezuela and Greenland. It's a harder sell with Iran. You know where Tucker stands. I read that 100% as 2028 JD's wheels are spinning, and this is why it's hard to be the vice president.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's not just that, but I mean, like I said, policy-wise, the problem that you fundamentally have in Iran, which makes it unique, is that it's after Venezuela, everybody tried to make this false equivalency with Iraq and Afghanistan. I actually think the better apt analogy might be Iran, which is because you can't just sort of take a place with nukes and be like, we're going to do non-kinetic strikes and take out some regime stuff and then hope everything goes well. That's a very different kettle of fish. So I think that the vice president's warning is like, hey guys, like we might want to think this through. If that's true, I don't know that it's true, but I think there's a whole host of things. One, his job is to make sure that we're thinking this thing through. Two, the political sensitivities is I don't want to own the hot potato. Yeah. Three is just, I mean, in general, the sort of the MAGA philosophy, which is, do we really want to be talking into a midterm about like how many troops we have stationed in Iran?
Yeah, I just think the president very clearly loves to show muscle and like the muscle of the U.S. military. So like if he ends up doing a strike here, I just wouldn't be surprised at all. I could be totally wrong on this.
But I don't doubt that, Rachel. But the key is that when you go through these, we talked about yesterday, that's what they're going to do in the sit room today. We're going to go through the options and they're going to say, Mr. President, when we take this out, this is what's going to happen. And then we'll do this. And he's going to go, wait, so we have to do that. Like, we'll take it out and then this is what will be left and this is what we'll do. And he'll go, well, wait, I don't know that I want that.
And let me ask you this, though. I mean, the other thing you got to start thinking about is nobody bats 1,000. We have the best military in the world. They're unbelievable.
Yeah.
But the last decade or last 5 or 6 years, we've had almost no military operations really go wrong. What if the Iranians respond and hit Israel and Israel says, then, God damn it, we're coming back? Then what do? Do we say, okay, Israel, good luck? Of course not. To Sean's point, I know we're big, bad military and Trump likes to be tough, but I think he is sober about, I want to do it where I know I'm going to win. And
that's the other thing. To Dan's point, it's not just like what happens for us afterwards is, if these guys see it coming, do they fire off? I mean, they've already said, hey, we're going after U.S. positions and we're going to go after Israel. And suddenly you now go, okay, now what do we do after that? Because at some point, if you have nothing to lose, you start firing stuff.
Right. Yeah. The regime's dead anyway. So, yep.
Let's move on to 2028. So it's not getting a ton of attention right now, but behind the scenes, the states are sort of jockeying over who's going to get to go first when it comes to the 2028 primary. There is a Friday deadline. The DNC set a Friday deadline for states to apply to be placed in the so-called early window. So this is the month leading up to Super Tuesday.
To write an essay. Is that like a college application? I would like to go first because I feel like I volunteered this summer.
No, it's really fascinating though. I mean, like you read it and like, Nevada, like they say, there's a big Latino population, but they're also really far away from certain, power centers in Washington, New Hampshire. They have like the very passionate voters, but they're very white. Democrats say, like, is it South Carolina? Is it Michigan? Dan, like, just like, where do you think, which state do you think is sort of leading on this, or would you expect to go first at this point?
First off, let me just, for people who don't see why this is a big deal, certain candidates have a natural advantage in certain states, whether it's geography or the demographics of it. And so politics is often about momentum. And so if depending on which states go first, if certain candidates are better fits and start racking up victories, it's hard to stop a rolling train. And so this is a huge deal when you try to game out who might win the Democratic nomination in 2028. I think the two states to watch are Michigan and North Carolina. Now, North Carolina, you would need the Republican state legislature to agree. I doubt, they'll probably do that. I would keep an eye on Michigan. It kind of has everything. It has urban voters. It has Black voters. It has rural voters. It's obviously a state that we need to try to, figure out how to win back. I just don't see how New Hampshire and Iowa, the best thing New Hampshire can say is they take it seriously. I mean, I've always said this, that's a joke. They're the only one who's gone first. So how can anyone else make that, have a counter argument? And in my opinion, it's become, the sense that those two states, Iowa and New Hampshire, that it's owed to them, that it's really about, I mean, the number of ambassadors that have come out of New Hampshire is so disproportionate to the state simply because people come and kiss fannies there all day long. So I would watch Michigan. But the thing that you got to watch for is now, how do the 2028 candidates work behind the scenes? Who's got leverage over those 400 members of the voting committee that can start cutting deals and try to move up? Where's Kamala Harris? A lot of those are Biden-Harris people. If she's serious, she ought to be all in on like South Carolina, where black women are big. So you got to watch who's pushing and how they're doing it.
By the way, real quick, the vice president's statement, per our last thing, has now released a statement that said the Wall Street Journal reporting is not accurate. Vice President Vance and Secretary of State Rubio together are presenting a suite of options to the president, ranging from a diplomatic approach to military actions. They are presenting those options without bias or favor. That's according to Will Martin, who's the communications director to Vance, just put out a statement now. So they're obviously pushing back on this because they. So the funny part is, to Dan's point, if they were concerned about the political piece of this, they certainly aren't letting on to it.
Although, Sean, in hearing what you just said, based on the degree of pushback that has come from the Vance team over the last year, that was pretty vanilla. And I don't think it's just because it's the Wall Street Journal. That's a pretty carefully worded, direct, short statement from a guy who can, fire a blowtorch when he wants to.
I mean, look, like he's the president's right-hand man. I mean, he's not gonna like come out and separate himself from the president. Like, he's not. Like, he's got to stay loyal. Like, he's got to do the job first if he wants the job, right? But that's,
I can say this,
but Rachel, it doesn't have to be an either or. It can be
there's
both.
Like suggestions that he is asking about diplomacy options. Like, that's like the president would want that. That's what you do as an advisor. Like Marco or Rubio would be asking that. But I digress.
But the one thing I'll say on this is that if that like in a normal construct, the leak to the Wall Street Journal in the first place would have been a marker to say, we just want to make sure everyone knows where the VP was on this, right? So to come out publicly and dispute it undermines the strategy in the first place. So if that was their tactic,
I'm not saying that was their tactic.
I don't buy that was ever their tactic, because if you're going to come out and publicly rebuke a background source, then it didn't work too well.
No, I agree with you. I wasn't suggesting by any means that I thought this was a tactic. My point was just he's got to be Trump's right-hand guy for the next few years if he wants this job himself. And then also, like, who cares if he's advising diplomacy? Like, so like you have to look at the range of options the president likes that. Like,
you got to be the right hand and you got to separate yourself at the same time. Let's not kid ourselves. JD Vance wants to be president of the United States.
Our guest is here. Eric Burilson. Can we bring him in for our final segment? Let's see. Congressman, hi, welcome.
Good morning.
We're so glad that you're doing this. You're our first official guest since we launched the show officially.
I'm honored.
January 5th.
Thank you,
Wow, I'm very honored.
So let's talk about this plan. I have a photo. We have a photo, element 2. Let's put it up. The Make the American Dream Affordable Again. That's the name of this sort of reconciliation plan you're rolling out. A lot of stuff in here. You talk about trying to help Americans afford houses. You talk about giving money directly to Americans on healthcare instead of sending it to the insurance companies. You talk about pharmacy and drug benefits, etc. But one thing that I didn't see in this, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I didn't see anything about a 10% credit card cap or limiting corporations from buying single family homes. These are a couple of proposals that we know the president is going to be talking about today when he visits Detroit. Do you support those? Are they in this plan? And if not, why not?
Well, I'm not going to speak for the other members of the RSC that put together this plan. This plan was put together by all the ideas of members of the Republican Study Committee, all of the best ideas that are coming forward in that regard. And to direct to answer your question directly, I'm not a big fan of price caps or including caps on interest. And so I wouldn't, that's not necessarily an idea that I would put forward. But at least the president is attempting to try to bring down the costs. But this is a bill that I think will economically is in the right direction. Look, whenever I was entering the workforce in the year 2000, my wife and I, our average annual premiums were around $6,000 for the whole year. Today, the average family is paying $27,000. That is 4 times what people were paying just in the year 2000, when inflation has only risen by about twice that. So the reason why young people today see it as being impossible to afford a home is not only because of the interest rates being higher than normal, but what the real difference is the fact that you've got twice as much money coming out from people's pocketbooks every month just to have health insurance. And so if we don't attack that part of the affordability crisis, then we will have failed. There's a lot of great ideas in this package, including trying to get more homes in the supply chain, which means deregulating some of the building codes across the country, some of the environmental garbage that the Biden administration put forward that caused the cost of building a home to go up. And then in addition, trying to add more homes into the supply that are on the market available to be purchased by encouraging people to sell their homes. So if you, for example, I and many people like me own a second home that we rent. And I hold on to it, not because I want to, because I don't want to pay the capital gains tax. And if we gave some form of relief for people like that have homes or second homes that want to sell it to a first-time home buyer, that will really add a lot of inventory to the supply. And so a lot of these really creative ideas, I think, fit within a very conservative framework, which is what the Republican Study Committee is, and I'm happy to support.
Just one thing that stood out to me, you guys are proposing on healthcare a secondary sort of program that people can opt into. So you're not actually repealing Obamacare, or would you repeal Obamacare in this?
Yeah, so I'm proud to say that my healthcare reform ideas are the core part of the healthcare reform in this RC package. And what we've determined is that you don't have to repeal Obamacare, you can let it wither on the vine. And I say that because if you give people a better alternative, they're going to leave Obamacare. And the better alternative is to take the dollars from your employer, put that into a health savings account, where I call it a MAHA account. In addition, let people put their dollars in pre-tax as well. And if you get some form of government subsidy or some charitable aid to your account, that would go in as well. Let the people then take those dollars and purchase any health insurance product that they want to purchase, whether it's a state-sponsored insurance plan or if they want to pick an Obamacare plan, God bless them. They can pick the crappy Obamacare plan, but I think that people will find better options in the open market.
It's really fascinating to me because I covered the Hill for a decade during the repeal efforts, and like repealing Obamacare was like the top thing over and over again. And so to sort of see the transition to, okay, we're going to let it wither on the vine, as you said, and propose our own option. Really interesting how you guys are doing that and what it says about the politics of repealing Obamacare these days. But I do want to ask you about the political sensitivity of just doing a reconciliation bill again in a midterm year. I have heard from a number of Republicans who have told me privately, they won't say it on the record, that they think this is a big political, miscalculation. They are worried that the votes are not there, that, talking about healthcare in a midterm will just sort of spotlight an issue that traditionally helps Democrats. And so I have heard from a lot of Republicans, and I know you said healthcare is your issue, it's your bread and butter. What do you say to these Republicans who say it's time to stop talking about this and move on and focus on something else?
Yeah, I think that's the political miscalculation. I think that sadly, some of my colleagues are putting their head in the sand and ignoring the reality that people are facing. And I think that the American people demand more. And so I truly believe if we don't go big, we're going to go home. And if we don't deliver, if we fail to take advantage of this opportunity that we have, where we have a president, we have the Senate, and we have the House, and we don't fix healthcare, we don't fix the affordability crisis or a lot of these problems that are facing the American people, then we probably deserve to go home. And so I think that the only way through this is if we inspire people to send us back with bold action and solutions that actually deliver for them.
Dan, Sean, either of you want to jump in?
Can I just ask real quick, before we get to the proposal itself, is there consensus among leadership that there will be a reconciliation bill?
Well, I'm hearing from Johnson that is the plan. So Johnson is on board with doing Reconciliation 2.0. And the president, when he spoke to Congress, when he spoke to the Republican conference, that he was asking for all of these provisions, fix healthcare, particularly find ways of fixing the election process. But the president, I think, is on board with that as well. And so we just need to get some of the conference. I think that what you're seeing is some of the old guard, people that have been around a long time, that they kind of seem hesitant to do that. But at the end of the day, if the president wants to see it done and the speaker wants to see it done, then I think that we need to move.
Okay. So the only other thing, the other going to process, the way you phrased it kind of was intriguing to me. Is this the best ideas that RSC, or is there consensus in the RSC? In other words, the way you phrased it was intriguing to me. Like, is it, these are all the top ideas, or if you put this proposal together right now, what percentage of the RSC, just the RSC, would support this right now?
I think
the way you laid it out.
Yeah, I think that they picked some of the ideas that they picked the best ideas that they think have a chance. And so they didn't pick all of my ideas on healthcare reform because some of them are a little too out there, right? That might be too politically, it might be a bridge too far, if you will. And so,
right. But you get what I'm asking? Isn't that they were the popular ones? Is the proposal that you guys put forward, the outline that we have right now, that we could, I don't know if we can put it on the screen, but it's like the healthcare and taxes and home ownership, as you kind of alluded to. Does that have the buy-in of the RSC as a body right now?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Because even the more moderate members of our conference are ready to take action in some form of reform. And so you've got an interesting dynamic where you have Freedom Caucus members and moderates. So for example, myself and Mike Lawler have been having conversations. We're from totally different ends of the political spectrum, but we're in agreement that we have to take action if we're going to survive the midterms, and we've got to do something big. We can't just tinker when it comes to this topic. And so he's on board, and so we're working together to actually come up with something that we can all agree on.
Congressman, assuming the speaker is on board here, have you guys started to talk about what the timeline is? Obviously, reconciliation has a series of steps that one has to take to get the train out of the station and down the tracks. And as you say, the primary season starts, I think the first ones are in less than a month now.
Yeah, I think the real timeline would have to be before the August recess. And so we need to move and back up from that date in order to be successful. That being said, I think that the rust has kind of come off. This conference or this Congress has experienced reconciliation, and I think that having gone through it, the exercise will be easier the next time that we do it.
You mentioned that you think the speaker is, for this idea of tackling another reconciliation bill, but do you know, has he endorsed certain elements of the plan that are rolled out right now? Like, is he committed to, this portion of, this framework or that portion or the whole portion at all? Do we know yet?
The speaker hasn't come out with a formal plan, which is why I think RSC, which is the conservative core of the conference and really the policy wonks of the conference, this is the very group that needs to lead, and I'm glad to see August Pfluger stepping up to the plate. To use a baseball term, he's a big baseball guy, and so to step
does he
up
play on the congressional baseball team?
Yeah, he plays third base.
Yeah.
I play on the team. I played bench. So
That's good. So would I if I played. That's good. That's good. Yeah, because the reason I ask is because there's a lot of, you mentioned when Sean asked about how were proposals chosen for this. You said a lot of them, it was consensus, but also what can actually move. But like some of these ideas, like they just can't move. I mean, Elon Musk himself couldn't eliminate more than a few $100 billion worth of government spending and waste. And you guys here are proposing, cutting $1.6 trillion, right? I'm getting that from the federal budget. How would you even do that if you can't tackle entitlement reform?
I mean, I think that we do need to lead. I think that we're able to get a lot more accomplished in reconciliation. So we were able to, in this last package, do things that this town thought were completely impossible. We were able to cut almost $1 trillion out of the Medicaid through the waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicaid. We were able to cut over $1 trillion, almost $1 trillion out of the Green New Deal, which every component of the Green New Deal is basically a tax credit that's got lobbyists in this town that are highly employed to keep in place. And so this town, everywhere I went, people said that you're never going to accomplish those kind of spending reductions. And yet we were able to deliver that in the last reconciliation package. And I think that the impetus or the desire to do something on healthcare is going to be the core driver for passing Reconciliation 2.0. And within that, I think that we should at least attempt or try to get as many spending reductions as possible.
Or it will be the core reason some Republicans don't want to do this. Because I swear, I've talked to a lot of them and they just don't want to tackle healthcare. But I digress. I do want to just sort of wrap up, I guess, with this question about how you do another reconciliation bill. I mean, putting aside the political calculation, right? Some people's fear that this could keep healthcare in the headlines. There's the margin. You guys have a really slim margin in the House. I covered, the efforts to repeal Obamacare and replace it, last time around, and the margin was much, much bigger. And it was still, a half a year long effort that ended in failure. With John McCain's, thumbs down on the floor saying he wouldn't vote for it. So I guess I wonder, how are you going to do this when, if you have a member that's sick, or, helping a family member who is ill, like you guys can't sometimes move legislation. You have to delay things. Like, how are you going to get the votes in the agreement with a conference that is so ideologically different to actually move something like this? You really think you can do it?
I do, because we did it before. We did it last year with a very slim majority. And look, there's some kind of beautiful dynamic when it comes to slim majorities. What it does is it really puts leadership on the spot where they can't afford to ignore the thoughts and ideas and opinions of the members of the conference. And I think that, iron sharpens iron. There's a lot of, these people, all of my colleagues were elected by their district by hundreds of thousands of people who said that they were the right kind of person to lead. And I think that when you have a slim majority, you're getting the opinions and the thoughts from from all of the conference. And I think it makes for a better product. And so if we all know that we've got to, hitch together and in order to get this done, I think that there's a motivation to find a path. I watched the same thing happen in Missouri when the Missouri Republican Party took over the House and the Senate back in the year 2000. They had a 1-seat majority, and yet they passed some of the most, big game-changing bills in Missouri's history that were conservative. And the reason is because they knew that they had to stick together. And I think that it just creates that kind of dynamic. And I think we did it before. I think we can do it again.
Ugh.
Can I
Speaker Mike Johnson has a lot of stress on his plate then if he's going to do this again this year. Sorry, Sean, go ahead.
Work more. I mean, it does. It absolutely makes leadership work more. But you know what? They chose the job. I have no sympathy.
That's true.
There you go. It was in the fine print.
Complaining.
Off topic real quick. You've been a leader in the pro-life movement. When the president made that comment the other day about having flexibility on Hyde, how do you interpret that?
Yeah, that hurt. I'm not going to look. I love President Trump, but I'm not going to change my views on this topic. And I'm adamantly pro-life. I'm going to make sure that whatever dollars that the American taxpayers spend, that it does not go to fund abortions. This is a common sense bipartisan issue. The Hyde Amendment was something that Republicans had agreed upon, Democrats had agreed upon going back decades. I just think that it's a reasonable request that we have Hyde language in any kind of solution.
No, thank you for that.
Congressman, thank you for coming on. Really appreciate
Thank
you
you,
taking time and
Congressman.
chatting with us.
Thank you.
We're going to send you a mug in a year or two.
Oh, sounds great.
I don't know.
It may take a year, but we'll get it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get there eventually.
Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, that was great. Let's do some questions. We'll start with X. Put some up on the screen here. Okay, the Civil Rights Division is not going to investigate the Renee shooting. This is the Minnesota ICE shooting. Meanwhile, Kristi Noem has called for many more ICE agents, while local governments is calling the situation unbearable. The Fed shows no sign of de-escalation. How much worse will this get before it ends? Sean, will you take that? Because
Thank you.
Seriously, like sending more ICE officials, like saying they're not going to investigate. You talked a little bit about this yesterday. You think they should do an investigation just because it would go further with more people, right? Just in terms of saying this guy was justified in what he did, right?
Yeah. So there's two things here: the policy and then the politics. And to address both. I mean, on the policy front, look, they have a legal right to do what they have to do. I would just, as Dan and I talked about yesterday, I think that anytime, like, again, wake up this morning, look at the imagery that's coming out. One, politically speaking, it's undermining this issue of affordability. That's what people like. At the end of the day, the president campaigned on illegal immigration. He's right on illegal immigration. We have, but it's like anything else. Like sometimes you have to calibrate that and go, okay, do we need to accelerate right now or not? And I would just say that, like, you can still do what you're doing, but take the temperature down in Minnesota, because right now the focus isn't on what you want it to be, which is securing the border, making sure people aren't in the country illegally, that criminals aren't being able to conduct activities that aren't here legally. I mean, again, I think that it's not that what they're doing is not right or legal but it's just a question of sometimes calibrating. When do you surge? When do you not? And I'm not sure that, like, we're getting more juice for the squeeze right now. We're going in, we're spending more people to protect more people to do the job. And we've lost sight of the whole reason that initially the surge went in, which is the Somalian fraud that's been ripping us off. So yeah. I think, and then on the investigation, as I said yesterday, I believe that at the end of the day, this was a justified shooting. An officer believed, rightly so, that their life was under attack. Someone accelerated. Again, the bottom line is you were told you were in a place you weren't supposed to be. You were told to get out of the car. It was a legal operation, and you accelerated. Whether she meant it or not, I honestly, I don't believe she did. But that's just my guess. But I also don't, that doesn't mean that he's not right to defend himself. So I think letting people in the, open kimono here, bring them in, say, here's the investigation, here's the material, here's what we saw, here's the policies, right? What are the policies that an officer must follow and a federal agent must follow according to CBP, according to DHS, and did they follow them or not? And then say, yes, no. If Minnesota's bought in, they may not like it, but at least they felt like they were part of the process. That to me is the right thing to do.
I think they have a huge problem with policy and politics. You always want to be on the side of transparency and accountability. And right now, they look like neither. And their problem is it's happening not just here, but in other cities where they're like, oh, no. Nobody can have access to the information. Congress has to ask and wait 7 days to come visit centers. It looks terrible. It just looks, they are losing control of this narrative that should have been the biggest winner they have.
Let's take another one. I like this question. Why can't President Trump quit listening to Bill Pulte?
Well, one of the problems is when you golf with someone, it's usually like 3.5 to 4 hours. It's hard to ignore.
Oh, no, dude. Listen, I used to, when Trump went golfing, that was my time. He gets that round. He can get a round down to like 2 hours and 47 minutes, I believe.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
I will take the answer on this one, guys, if you don't mind.
Yep,
So it's not just golf. It's actually a personality thing. When I wrote this story about him clashing with Besant, people close to the president told me that he loves the guy's sort of pugnacious personality. He has I think 3 million Twitter followers. He was constantly going after Jerome Powell, saying he should step aside, that he needs to lower interest rates. He's very Trumpian. He's like a mini Trump. And so obviously the president really likes that. I'm just pulling up my story right now to see what other reasons why the president likes him. He quickly fired more than 100 Fannie and Freddie staffers when he took control of the housing finance entity. This was after just a couple days after he came in. Again, this sort of approach, it's very it's an approach the president appreciates. And so naturally, he's got the president's ear sometimes on that. Let's take a few questions from comments. If we've got any. Here we go. What do you guys think of Rahm Emanuel taking a swipe at Newsom? Is the DNC primary beginning? Dan.
Yeah, it's definitely started. And look, I think it's great on some level. We need to have this fight. There's a lot of what Rahm says that I like. And if Gavin Newsom can't defend from a Rahm Emanuel attack, wait until, JD Vance or Marco Rubio or whomever, comes at him in the future. So this is not for the faint of heart. And this is where people are going to have to start showing that they can throw a punch, take a punch, and navigate the minefield.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there's no question he's trying to carve out his lane, definitely taking a swipe. So yeah, this is the first salvo. And frankly, it's like a trial balloon. Do people find that attractive? Do they find my fight, do my angle? I mean, this is your literally your political trial balloon. Are you getting those phone calls that say, hey, I like the way that you're approaching this. I totally agree with you. I'll have your back. Okay, will you give me money? Yeah, I will. Here's my commitment to you.
Okay, let's take a few. We're going to do a quick lightning round if we can. Why can't we just have a national primary day? Why do certain states get the ball rolling at all? What if we just voted on one primary day?
Great question. I think there's another version of that, which is what if you had 3 or 4 states go, together, and it wasn't just one state.
So this is actually a fascinating question because when you're in the
Sean's lightning round still
because one thing that you have to remember, this is there's a lot of I spent 6 years at the committee, so I can tell you that the party is a private entity. Just so people understand this has been settled by the courts. So the idea of a primary, parties get to set their rules. That's number one. Number two is there is something about being able, you think about it, Clinton, I don't think Clinton would have been president had it not been for New Hampshire, the comeback kid. The idea of a lesser known, lesser funded candidate being able to compete sometimes. If it's national, you're going to California, you're going where the delegates are, where the media markets are. You can't do retail politics. Big money will definitely win every time on that. And so there is something to be said for it. I personally am a believer that if I were king for a day at a party, I would divide it up into sort of maybe regions that would go. So you'd have to play it off in different ways, but not be able to run the table.
Let's do another one. Will any heads roll over the Powell indictment?
No.
The president doesn't like to fire people. He views it as giving a scalp to the media, but also he probably likes this, even though it's not.
Yeah, I was going to say that's the other thing. Is that this is right. This is not like you went against him. Yeah. It's you might get the wink and nod, but you're going to get the A for effort.
I mean, it makes them look like it makes them look like clowns.
Look. All that matters is the president and what he thinks.
I hear you. It makes him look like a clown too.
Let's take another one. What does Project 2025 healthcare plan say? Not being snarky, just curious. Could the GOP adopt a plan? Clearly, the GOP has no plan.
I mean, it is so ironic. I've said it a million times that they ran away in 24 from Project 2025 when they absolutely played a huge hand in writing it. Who knows? The Republicans haven't had a plan for 30 years. They're not going to start now.
Well, look, I think there's a difference between a bunch of ideas versus a plan and consensus on a plan. And those are separate things. So there are plenty of ideas. I'm a big fan of some of the things that Eric Burilson talked about a moment ago. But they've got to get that consensus, and there needs to be. I think this is where the president at some point. I get the adversity to doing it, but he's got to go. These are the 3 things that I'm going to fight for, or 4 things, whatever, and let's roll.
Guys, that's all we have time for today. Thank you so much for watching. And also, I want to hear your feedback on us having guests. So that was exciting. I'm curious what people think on that.
Anyone
Before we
else?
go, though, Sean, what do you have coming up?
Oh, that's great. Yeah, we've got exclusive polling. Signal, Brent Buchanan, the president of Signal Polling, going to share his latest polls on affordability, Venezuela. We're going to break it all down tonight at 6. But I'm telling you, I got a preview of this poll. It's pretty amazing where we are as a country.
Awesome. Everybody tune into that. Okay, so just final housekeeping notes again. Go to our YouTube channel, please, and subscribe at the DC Huddle on YouTube, or sign up thedchuddle.com. You can sign up for email and you can see the YouTube there. And again, thanks to everyone who has subscribed to our premium subscription. Our numbers are really going up on that. It's been really great and it helps support the show. If you haven't signed up and you've got, $10 a month and want to have some extra time with us on Fridays, definitely consider it. We would love to see you guys there on Fridays. So thanks again, and we will see you tomorrow morning, 8:30.